Can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers three-peat the weaker NFC South, or will they walk the plank en route for a rebuild? Find out in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2023 season outlook.
ATL Jacob.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Shantz. Tonight, we're going to be finishing up the NFC South talk with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who've won this division the past two seasons. They were 8-9 last year. With the amount of talent that they had, coupled with the weird results that were played out on the field, it equaled a division championship. It was quite odd. An 8-9 team with Tom Brady, and they had the likes of Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, so many talented players, Lavonte David, Devin White on defense. It was an odd year for them, but hey, they got to the playoffs, and they got spanked by the Dallas Cowboys. It was a really odd year. Tom Brady's final year in the National Football League. He had a pretty good season when it comes to looking at other quarterbacks' numbers, but for his standards, this was not it. Father Time somewhat caught up to him when it came to him winning 6 Super Bowls and throwing for nearly 5,000 yards. So it was a rude awakening for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll look at some of the adds and losses that they had in this offseason. A decent amount of pieces left for the Bucs, such as Leonard Fournette, Shaq Mason, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Keanu Neal, Donovan Smith. But then when you look at the adds the Buccaneers had, they re-signed a couple of guys back like Lavonte David, but they added in free agency Chase Edmonds, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Neal, and a couple of backup quarterbacks. So it was an interesting offseason for them. They had to take that dip from Tom Brady being their quarterback, so obviously it's going to be a hit regardless. But we'll see what Baker Mayfield, or is it Kyle Trask? We'll talk about that in just a second. The quarterback and the running back. There's going to be new ones for the Bucs this year. Bengals football, big Bengals fan. I don't care. I'll tell you this. Baker Mayfield's going to walk in and probably be the starter. Kyle Trask was the former second-round pick from 2021. They're going to battle it out. You've seen the videos on Twitter. It doesn't look that great. But Baker Mayfield last year, 60% completion percentage, played on 2 different teams, 2,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 79 rating. He's got guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Cade Otton. Not a terrible core right there. His top 2 receivers both went over 1,000 yards last year. They've won a Super Bowl before. It's a different team with a different quarterback, but maybe Baker Mayfield can give them some type of juice and some life. So when you're looking at it, though, is it Kyle Trask, though? Kyle Trask had a great season at Florida in 2020, but really ended his college career in a horrible way against Oklahoma. Not a great taste in your mouth. He doesn't seem to be ready, but there is going to be a quarterback competition, so we'll see how that entirely goes. Baker Mayfield has learned a lot of different systems over the last couple of years, played for the Browns, Panthers, Rams, now the Bucs. So he's been around, and he's one of those journeyman quarterbacks that you could put that label on him. You have in the backfield next to him Rachaad White. Not Leonard Fournette, Rachaad White. Better pass catcher than I'd say running back, but the Bucs run game was pretty bad last year, so maybe they're going to try to retool some stuff and help Baker Mayfield relieve some pressure off of him if they can run the football well. So Rachaad White, I'm excited to see what he can do at the running back position. Maybe he can add a different level of burst and versatility than what Leonard Fournette had being a running back in between the tackles. Mike Evans, consistent as heck, 77 catches, 1,124 yards, 6 touchdowns. Had a great season again last year. Looking for another good one this year. 1,000-yard season might be in jeopardy, but if he has a consistent quarterback with him in Baker Mayfield, I think he can easily get 1,000. Chris Godwin came off the injuries the last couple of years, 104 catches, 1,023 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's going to be Baker's security blanket or Kyle Trask's security blanket. Whoever it is, he's going to be that 100-catch guy that the Buccaneers need to function. So this offense, depending on what direction that they take it in, it can be a well-oiled machine, or it could end up being a dumpster fire if Baker Mayfield starts to go back to playing his ways against the Pittsburgh Steelers or whatever you want to call it. So it should be interesting. We're looking at the Buccaneers defense. They sat in the upper half of most major categories. They have a good defensive front, looking at the new rookie Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh, Vita Vea in the middle, Logan Hall on the other end, and then you add the pass rushers like Joe Tyron Shoyinka and Shaq Barrett, who had 3 sacks last season. I think his season was cut short. But really what I want to look at, the focal point of this defense, are the 2 guys in the middle. If the Bucs want to have opportunity and chances to win games, it's going to start on defense, and it starts with Lavonte David and Devin White, arguably the top 5 linebacking duo in the National Football League. Both of them had 124 tackles last year. Devin White had 5.5 sacks. Lavonte David had 3. These guys have noses for the football. When you're talking about a run game and you're playing, your run-heavy team like a Tennessee that they will see this year, and you got 2 linebackers of that caliber going after a Derrick Henry or any other great running back, that's a scary thing. You got a game plan around Lavonte David and Devin White. And they have noses for the football, great downhill. They can drop in coverage. They're so versatile. They really just own the middle of the field. And Pro Football Focus had a list come out about how they went through their top 10 linebacking duos or cores in the National Football League, and they were right at the end. They were toward number 10 on that list, which is an absolute travesty because I don't know what game they were watching or what season they were watching, let alone the last couple of years. Those 2 practically were a big piece in winning the Super Bowl in 2020 against the Kansas City Chiefs. So when you're looking at these guys and you look at where the Bucs' success is going to be this year, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball against the run, and it's going to start with number 45 and number 54. You look on the outside in the secondary, you got Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis III. These are 2 good corners. I mean, Jamel Dean, 57 tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 passes defended last season. He was a big force for the Buccaneers defense. And then on the other side, you had Carlton Davis, 65 tackles, an interception, and 12 passes defended. Carlton Davis, when he's covering receiver, man, he will always get his hands on the football. He's always around. Some of the best receivers in the National Football League, he's done a pretty good job against a good deal of them. So you can always count on him to be really aggressive. And then at the safety position, they got Ryan Neal from Seattle, 66 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, 8 passes defended last year for that defense that made the playoffs. And then Antoine Winfield, 80 tackles, 4 sacks. He loves the blitz, very physical guy. Forced fumble, interception, 3 passes defended. Antoine Winfield, you can move him all over the place. You can move him, free. You can put him free high. You could move him in the box. You could blitz him. You could do some stunts with him on some packages. I mean, he's a very, very versatile piece. So this Bucs secondary is a strength, and also that's going to play dividends into how their success is when it comes, to the linebackers up front and then what they're able to do on the back end. So Tampa Bay did get 2 primetime games. They play against the Philadelphia Eagles Week 3 Monday Night Football, part of a doubleheader, and they play at 7:15 on ABC. And then Week 8, they play the Thursday Night Football game against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. So they got 2 of the toughest teams in the National Football League they're playing against on primetime, but the game I'm circling is that Philadelphia game. I mean, it's going to be late September, 2 games into the season. You already had an away game and a home game, and you're welcoming the defending NFC champions into the building. This is a chance that you can catch them off guard, and hopefully your defense is going at it and they're firing on all cylinders early in the season, and then the offense can start trying to pick things up and maybe catch the Eagles off guard. So this is a big game, primetime game, Monday Night Football. Doesn't get much better than that. So that's a big one to look forward to for the Buccaneers fans. Week 1, they play the Minnesota Vikings. They retooled their roster a bit. They still got to play Justin Jefferson, so that's in itself is a tough task. So it's going to take a group effort for their secondary to go through with that. That's September 10th, 1 p.m. CBS. It should be a good game though. I think if the Bucs go in there and have a very straightforward game plan, they play it simple, they're able to execute to a large part of running the football, stopping the run, and forcing Kirk Cousins to to make some tough throws, I think that could play in the Bucs' favor and they could steal a Week 1 game. When I'm looking at their season outlook, though, their prediction, it's tough. Their schedule isn't horrible, but they did take some significant hits in some of the players that they lost. I think the Bucs are going to finish anywhere in between that 4 to 6, 7 win mark. It's going to be tough. I think they could catch some games off some of these NFC South opponents that they play in their division, but nonetheless, I mean, I think the Bucs are going to be looking at a potential rebuild. You know, there's some good quarterbacks in next year's draft, but you know, I can't count them out because they have a really good defense and everything. But when it comes to their offense and Baker Mayfield and all that goes into that, I think they're going to have a bit of a drop off this year, and they're going to win probably around 5 or 6 games, being on the generous side of things.